Good morning, YouTubers. You're probably wondering what I'm doing in a bathroom, and that's a great question. It's 1 a.m. and I have been given the task of replacing this toilet. And I figured, well, I can't sleep and I need to get this done anyways, so why not do it now? So that's what we're going to be tackling today. Hopefully I'll be able to keep a straight face and keep the poop puns to a minimum, but we'll find out what happens as we go. So let's get into it. So for step one, you need to open up whatever toilet you bought and make sure the sucker isn't broke. And the reason I say that is because I've done quite a number of toilet installs, and more than once did I rip the toilet off the floor that was installed and working, only to find out the new toilet was broken in the box. And guess what? You're kind of SOL at that point, aren't you? So not only do you not have a toilet, but now you got an open sewer pipe that's going to be fun to deal with, which you can just shove rags in there or something and be fine, but you get the picture. So I'm going to open this up and see that everything is hopefully intact and in good shape. Probably a little bit hard for you guys to see, but everything appears to be okay with this one. No absolute cracks in it. And I read that this particular Kohler toilet is known to be defective out of the box, apparently, from what I read on the home improvement site. Now, brand-wise, honestly, as long as you get a decent one, and by decent I mean not the cheapest one you can possibly get, you're probably going to be fine. This is a Kohler toilet. I believe these are made in Wisconsin, where I'm from, so I'm somewhat supporting a rich, evil, giant corporation by buying this. But, you know, is what it is on that, I guess. I don't think you can get away from that unless you can find some handmade toilet company on Etsy, and good luck with that. So I think we're good here. Let's go back into the throne room and get ourselves dirty. So I often wondered why it is that plumbers often make more money than electricians. And I know even in industry, pipe fitters often make more money than electricians. And it's kind of a strange thing, but I guess it comes down to how many people want to be electricians and how many people want to be plumbers. Well, not many people want to be plumbers, and even aspiring plumbers out there, it's all fun and games until you have to deal with raw sewage. So, so step one here anyways, we got to shut the water off, which this has some completely janky BS coming up out of the floor. I'm going to shut that valve off and hope it holds. And if it doesn't, we'll have to go find a water main in this place. But my guess is it will. And I'll just shut it off now. And then you want to flush it. Now there's no water that's going to be filling up in the tank that I can hear, which is a good sign that that valve is holding. I'm going to take the top of the tank off and pull the plug valve up and try and get as much water out of the tank as possible for the sake of draining this. Because once we pull it up off the floor, you know, why carry that heavy weight of the water unless you have to? So with the lid off of this thing, what you got here is a pretty simple setup. There's basically a flushing valve, which is nothing more than like a rubber diaphragm that covers a hole, a little arm that goes over to this handle, and what the arm does when you press the handle outside of the tank is it basically just pops up, lets the water drain. Once it drains far enough down that this little stopper that floats sinks, it seals, and then the water, which if the water was turned on, would fill this up, and then you're ready for the next flush. Now, This doesn't have any nasty stuff that you want to avoid. It's pretty much clean water in here. You do see that there's some mold in here, which is pretty common because the water can sit stagnant in here, and this toilet probably doesn't get used that much. So guess what? It's going to get some mold and stuff. Best way to take care of that, you could probably toss one of them bleach pills in there, but who knows? You know, it's not the end of the world. I mean, it's a toilet. Who really cares, right? So anyways, now that I got most of that water out, we're in good shape. So the next step that we got to tackle here is we got to remove this water valve from the bottom of the tank here. Oh, look at that. I got my multi-tool handy and thing's so loose, I didn't even need it. Whoop. That's all right. That's not going to go anywhere. A little bit of water there. So that's disconnected. Most toilets are not like bolted to the wall or anything, so you don't got to worry about that, but we do have what's called flange bolts, so we're going to disconnect those. So the flange has 2 bolts on it, one on each side. I'm going to try and use my multi-tool and pray that that works, because I'm kind of feeling too lazy to go out and get some proper tools out of my work truck, but we'll see. Yeah, it looks like it's going. In case you're wondering what makes me qualified to do this and shoot a video on it, absolutely nothing. No, actually, so I used to do a lot of home remodeling back in the day. I've actually spent far more time doing that than welding and stuff. Not to mention, I do technically work for a municipal wastewater plant, so I know what's at the end of this poop pipe that this toilet's hooked to, so, and deal with that, so I definitely am qualified from a filth perspective. Excellent tile work in here. I have a feeling the new toilet may or may not sit flat flush the way it should on this, so we'll have to look at that, because the last thing I want is for the new toilet to crack due to the fact it's rocking, but we'll figure it out. All right, I'm going to go to the other side and pull that one off. Hopefully I can get lucky and this one comes off easy as well. So this whole job kind of reminds me of a story. I used to work in a field maintenance position where you actually had to like crawl in active sewers and all sorts of stuff, so you could just imagine the level of filth that you might find yourself in. And I ended up getting partnered with a guy. I'm not going to name his name, because not that he's watching, but we got to protect his identity. So anyways, this guy, he had a reputation of just being absolutely filthy. Like, you can imagine some of the people that you might find in a municipal wastewater plant. Well, this guy, he held the cake just on being filthy. What I mean by that is, we got a work order to go out. Is this stud rotating? Of course it is. Might have to get some more tools on this. I'll try and pull up and then rotate this out. Think I'm getting it. So anyways, we had a work order to jet a sewer line, like a, I don't know, a 1-foot sewer line out that crossed a county, big county road, because it was reportedly backed up by the local DPW said it was, and we only dealt with the main sewers, the big stuff. Well, we're out there, get our vac truck set up, and there we go. We got the line running underground, jetting this, which is basically a big pressure washer hose. Didn't really find anything. Line went, I don't know, 150 feet underground. And we're reeling it in, okay? And I'm not exaggerating. This guy that I was working with, we'll just call him, I don't know, Chuck, wraps his bare hand like this around the jetter hose, and as it's rolling in on the truck, squeegees the hose off with his bare hands, takes whatever you can imagine on his hand, just slaps it off on the ground, wipes it off on his pants, and then takes a tin of chew out. Same hand, dips in it, puts it in his mouth. Not exaggerating, in front of me. Like 100% I saw it. Yeah, there's people like that out there. All right, let's move on. So we're kind of back at square one. What I ended up doing, got a piece of cardboard here. And what we're gonna do, or what I'm gonna do, is I'm gonna lift this toilet straight up off of those studs that we just backed the bolts off, set it on this cardboard. The reason is there's a wax gasket underneath this thing that's gonna make a mess, and it's still full of water in the bowl. Not full, but it has some water in it. And rather than spilling it all over the place, the cardboard should absorb it. Now, keep in mind, the water that's inside of here, if you're brave enough, you could just siphon it out into the sink or into a bucket if you want. I'm not brave, so we'll leave that in there where it belongs. So let me just get in there and lift it off. Success. All right, so I'm going to spend a little bit of time to fix this thing up, aka clean it. Did you guys hear about that new movie called Constipation? Yeah, it never came out. So, one of the things you're probably telling yourself right now is that you probably don't have the stomach to be doing this kind of work, and you probably are right, and I don't either, okay? But simply by working in a sewage treatment plant for as long as I have, kind of allows you to handle things that other people can't, I guess. But the truth is, though, this really doesn't smell at all, and that's because, well, for one, I'm not running any kind of fan in here to pull air out of the stink pipe there, so that's good. And two, wastewater is actually almost all water. So it generally, unless you have a backup that's been sitting for months, it generally doesn't smell that bad, or nearly as bad as you would think. And also a teachable moment, the smell that you get that's really rancid, that smells kind of like rotten eggs off of sewage, that's known as hydrogen sulfide gas, H2S. That's the smell that you don't like. All right, I just kind of wiped this down. We have a wax ring of some sort, and this seems to be one of them fancy ones with a rubber inner part. No, this isn't all, sewer peanut butter here, so you don't have to worry, it's wax. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this wax ring off and inspect the flange. No, that's not sewer peanut butter. Get your mind out of the gutter. If you're brave enough, you can do this without gloves. I am not that individual. Again, this is wax, so don't worry. You want to get this, all this crap, no pun intended, cleaned off. All right, so with that cleaned up, let's do a little bit of a up close and talk about a few things. So what we have here is a cast iron flange, and basically just a wide open 3.5, 4-inch pipe there. And the toilet sits on top of that on a wax seal. So it's basically like a flat mating surface to the toilet with a gasket of wax. And that's how the toilet seals to your floor. And this is in North America. Overseas, I know they have a lot of different ways of doing toilets that we don't do. This is what we've done, I don't know, since toilets were used in this country. And it kind of is universally the same here. I took the liberty of removing the bolts off the side, which are over there. They just slip under that flange and then pull up. If your flange has the ear broken off, you're in trouble because you won't be able to bolt your toilet down. And if you can't bolt your toilet down, then it's going to rock, move, possibly not seal, and leak on the side around here. So that's not good. They do make flange repair kits that will fix that. And in the case of this, the way that this was designed, there's no real easy way to pull this flange off. This may, looking at it, it's hard to say. Some of these were actually removable. This one does not appear to be. I actually have a tool to cut this down in the pipe and just pull this off and then put a whole new flange on it. They're the cutters are almost non-existent because they're not used anymore, but you know, in modern houses all use PVC, not stuff like this. This is a very old house that I'm in doing this job in, but in the case of this, everything seems to be okay with the flange, so that's a plus. What I don't like is we kind of got a couple issues here. If you look at this tile, you see how, well, for one, that's higher there, and your depth perception due to the poor lighting is probably not that great, but the tile is like sunk in around here, and there's a couple issues going on. Well, one, whoever tiled this floor was an absolute moron, and they just glued these tiles straight down to plywood, which presumably the original floor that was in here, which is probably asbestos linoleum, judging by it kind of looks like it is. Well, anyways, they just anchored plywood down and then took and glued all these tiles, and that's why if you look here, they're all loose. So we're kind of in a conundrum where I want to rip this whole floor up, redo it, and have this thing set up right, but I simply can't in this situation. So what I'm going to have to do is just kind of eyeball with this new toilet and make sure that it's going to sit somewhat close to flat on this flange. I'm a little concerned if the toilet hangs back here too far, it's not going to seal under here. So I'm going to bring the new bowl and everything in here, set it, and eyeball it from the side, get a better idea. Now down the road, this bathroom is going to get remodeled, I guess. So that the new toilet will get pulled out and basically this will all get fixed. But for right now, I guess it is what it is. So let me go get the new one in here and eyeball it. So shockingly enough, the toilet fits perfect and it's somewhat flat. Not perfectly flat, but it's supported enough to where I think it'll be all right. A couple tiles over there came off from the back, and honestly, there's not a whole lot I can do about that. I will use some sort of a shim. Maybe I'll use the tile itself and some glue on the very back of it just to shim it in because those came out where it's sitting. Is it the end of the world? Not really, to be honest. It's supported enough on the floor, it'll be all right. Now, this whole bathroom definitely is due for a remodel, and it should be done right. Like the floor should actually be tiled on concrete board or something, like something better than what's in here. But for right now, it'll have to do. And this toilet is a lot taller than that other one. It's a comfort height toilet, which is why this is going in anyways. So what I'm going to do is pull it up. I'm going to clean all of this stuff like back here because, you know, it's pretty dusty in here. And then I'm going to grab the wax ring and show you what to do with that. All right, so that wax ring that you get, which is this guy, soak it in some hot water to soften up the wax, and then you just kind of peel it off and then set it on there. Now, some of these have a little bonus shoot on them per se. Those, you can use those, and that will help it stay centered in the pipe so it doesn't, like when you set the toilet, that it doesn't move, which can cause leaks. They also have double height gaskets, which are like two of these in one. And that's if your flange is a lot lower than the floor, which this one's pretty close. I mean, it's level with the floor kind of, so we're in good shape there. But generally speaking, when you're down to using a double height gasket, you're gonna have troubles with it sealing no matter what. So I wouldn't recommend those. I would recommend fixing the problem. pretty crazy that these seals are still being made. Same technology over 100 years. All right. I also find it funny that like everything to do with plumbing is like brown. Like, why couldn't they have made that a more festive color, like red or blue or something? Oh well, plumbers don't have a sense of humor, I guess. So with that set right there, what I'm gonna do is pick the toilet bowl up, set it on those studs. I'm gonna make sure that they're upright. It came with little plastic spacers to kind of keep that. You wanna be careful with this part, because if you don't get this thing stuck where it needs to be and set it on straight, if it pushes off to the side, you'll have a sewer gas or water leak on the side. Now keep in mind, like you can see in there, there's not standing, you know, gray water in this or black water. This pipe is empty until you flush, and then once you flush, a couple seconds later, it's empty again. So you don't really have water in here unless you have a backup in the system, then you might get water. And then of course, if this wasn't sealed properly, the water in a backup situation, if you ran the sink over here, the sink being higher than this flange, if this was plugged under there, it would fill this up with water and leak around the toilet. All right, let me get this bowl on there. All right, sorry about that. I lost you guys there. Camera battery died, didn't know. So anyways, I put that wax seal on it, line this up, set it, press down, straight down, while standing over it. You want to get it pressed down almost as far as it can go, pretty much as flat as it can go, and then you put the nuts on the sides and tighten them down. Now, I won't BS you guys. If you're not careful, you will crack the ear off the toilet. Like, this thing is porcelain, very brittle, and if you keep cranking on those nuts to try and pull it tight, what's going to end up happening is it's just going to shatter and break off that ear of the porcelain on one of the two sides. I've seen it happen many times. I probably have done it myself at least once, but I've seen it enough times to where I know better. So the whole thing is that the toilet needs to be flat against the ground. If it's not, you're not going to suck it down. Like, this thing doesn't have flexibility to it. So now that I got the bowl itself and it's nice and sturdy, does not appear to rock. That way, you know, you don't want to fall off this thing when you're on a wild ride after a midnight bender like I just was with Taco Bell. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to grab the tank, put the gasket on the bottom there or on the tank, however it works, and we're going to bolt it up. All right, so now I'm just going to tighten these. You want to be careful not to over tighten them. Do a little bit at a time until they're, I guess, not even snug, but just they feel a little bit tight. I mean, if it leaks, you can always tighten them a little bit more, but you don't want to be busting this off because good luck warrantying it. They assume that you were an idiot. I didn't mention too that wax seal, when you set your toilet down, if you don't feel it touching that wax when it's all the way flat, pretty much you need either a taller wax seal, which I wouldn't recommend, or to raise the flange that it sits on. And I'm telling you guys, it's so common for people just to slap a toilet on and not even check stuff, and then, you know, it's sitting too low and the seal doesn't seal anything, and then you get sewer gas or water coming up through. So, oh, yeah, don't drop the hardened tool steel ratchet. That'll crack it. All right, well, I'm gonna finish this up and then I'll come back. So that tank is tight, well, the bolts are tight, but there is a gap underneath here. You want that in most cases. Refer to the directions if you're wondering if yours requires it or not. Now I'm gonna hook this water line up, which of course is old and short. Oh, actually, no, it's not short. That's good. But it is a piece of junk. I'm gonna end up putting this on there, I think, and then You know, I don't quite understand. You got a line coming out of the wall there and then this thing. So clearly a bunch of people have been at this. I don't have a channel locks on me right now, but I'm gonna end up kind of straightening that out a little bit maybe, and I'll use a channel locks to tighten it. So we got the bolts in the seat here. You definitely want to bolt the seat down. You don't want that to go flying off of this for some reason. These are kind of weird little, I don't know what they are, but I guess they'll have to work. It's weird because there actually is no nut or anything on them. I think they're designed to where you can't over tighten them. Kind of a weird, design. Look how fancy that is, a no slam toilet seat. That's pretty wild. All right. Well, this beauty is pretty much done. It's time to turn the water on and make sure nothing leaks, and then give it a test drive. So this design, essentially this over here has a float, and as it lifts up, it shuts the water off. As it goes down, it turns the water on. So it works kind of like a sump pump float. This has this aqua piston super turd herder, basically shoots a jet of water down through the toilet using vacuum, I guess. I don't know, I'm not a toilet engineer, but this thing supposedly works pretty good. A little bit more powerful than your average toilet, so that's good. Hopefully save calls in the future to a plumber to unclog it if the plunger doesn't work, you know. So anyways, let me get that water turned on and let's check for leaks. Well, I don't feel anything, don't see anything, that's good. Let me open up the bowl. There is a little bit of water in there already, so that's good. So it's filled up to where it's factory set at. I'm gonna raise it just a little bit, I think. And I think you do that by spinning this. Well, let's back up and watch it flush. Now that's a powerful flush. Pretty wild, it does a whirlpool around there. I don't know, high technology, too much for me. Give me an outhouse. Well, pretty much all I gotta do is put the top on it and she's done. So why don't we go to conclusion? So in conclusion, what did we learn today? Well, we learned how to replace a toilet where most of the things went right. I mean, don't get me wrong, this bathroom needs to be completely gutted, remodeled, and done right. And that's kind of what I found in a lot of renovations, you know, in my past, is that so many people get into something and do things wrong that it becomes very difficult to touch anything without fixing everything around it. And I would have liked to have really fixed the floor to make this work better, but it did seal. And it is what it is. You know, you can't make every job perfect. I mean, for a toilet, this will be fine for quite a while until this place is, well, this room anyways, is renovated. I probably should have put a level on the tank, but I went by the tile on the back and it looks level by eyeball and everything, and nothing's leaking. So it's a job well done. And, you know, in a pinch, hey, don't be afraid of tackling a job like this by yourself, because, you know, I don't know what an average plumber charges now to do this, 150, 200 bucks. It's like, man, that's a lot of money. You can do it yourself and save that. You know, granted, you know, a lot can go wrong. Like if you break the toilet, well, guess what? You're out your savings of paying a plumber. So you got to keep that in mind. But with that said, thanks for sticking around. Until next time. It's all ready for years of thankless service.